Hey everybody, it's Matt here, the Toku Dragon, and today I'm going to be talking about something that is one of those things that when you were a kid, if you're anything like me, you would be on the playground at school talking to your friends about who would win in a fight with X versus Y, Z versus A, whatever character it was, you would say, oh yeah, well I bet you that, Superman could beat Goku, or this person can beat that person. And one of those discussions was Power Rangers versus Godzilla. And you didn't know why it would never happen. I mean, at least, again, if you were like me, you didn't know, oh, well, Godzilla's owned by Toho, and Eiji Tsuburaya created that, company, and then also created Tsuburaya Productions afterwards, and then made Ultraman. You didn't know about any of that stuff. You didn't know that Toei actually owned Power Rangers and that it was actually Super Sentai. You had absolutely no idea. But you just knew what you wanted to see. You wanted to see Godzilla versus the Power Rangers. And today, we're talking about just that. Because a comic book by both IDW and Boom just came out, super recently in fact. I didn't even know this thing was coming out because I'm actually not super into Power Rangers comics, although I'm about to be soon because this is definitely going to get me into them. I'm pointing at them because it's right over there. I should probably pick up the comic, shouldn't I? Here it is. And by the way, I will be showing some B footage off as well. Won't be spoiling anything, but do have to talk about the basic premise so I can talk about, the review portion of this video. Talk about what I liked and disliked about it. So, I do want to say, though, that if you are like me and you know nothing about Power Rangers comics, you just kind of sit back and you're like, I know Power Rangers and Godzilla either vaguely or, you've watched every season. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched it from the original all the way up to Wild Force, and then things got a little bit hazy, but I have seen, RPM, and I have seen since then a little bit more of Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder, even a little bit of Dino Thunder at the time too, because of course, Tommy came back. And so when talking about this right here, if you don't know anything other than, yeah, Power Rangers, yeah, Godzilla, you quite frankly should be good to go. This is a great way to get you interested in both if you even don't know too much about the other one. They explain everything very plainly, and I'll talk about the writers and the artists and the letterers and whatnot as we talk about this, as we get farther in the review. But I just want to say, though, that if you are unfamiliar with either one, this is a perfect entry point. And to be quite frank with you, if you're just not even familiar with it in comic book form, you haven't been following anything that Boom has done, and they've done a lot of stuff, then you are perfectly fine. This doesn't really even fit into any of their canon from what I've read, and from both from the comic itself and from what I've read online. Do not worry, you can buy this without any knowledge in the world of what's going on in that Boomiverse. I don't know what they're calling it, the Power Rangers universe. You don't have to know any of that. All you have to know is, oh, there are 5 Power Rangers that are Mighty Morphin. Also, there's Tommy as well, the Green Ranger, who was initially actually under the control of Rita, but got out of her control, and it was a whole thing. It was a whole arc. Which, as a kid, to be quite frank with you, mostly watching animated shows that were sitcom-esque. Yes, there were some action shows, but when I was growing up, it was mostly the Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network sitcom era. So seeing Power Rangers completely blew my mind, and it having actual arcs and whatnot and stories. And what I have to say that I like about this, by the way, if you're not someone who's a big fan of like puns and what they did back in the day with Power Rangers, then the comedy in here is actually oddly subtle by Power Rangers standards. Yes, there is a little bit of jokes in here and there. I mean, this is not going to be like the most serious epic journey you've ever been on, but at the same time, though, I do enjoy that they don't overload you. They do overload you with just the Rangers talking to each other. They are all very chatty, and you can tell when compared to Godzilla, who's just like, I'm going to kill everything in front of me. You have the Rangers talking to each other and whatnot, but what I do enjoy is the fact that it doesn't really overload you with constant puns and whatnot. It very much felt deliberate in that they wanted to evoke the original, of course, in many respects. I mean, we're even using the original logo right here, but at the same time, though, not make it seem like you are just constantly being hit and just over the head. As much as I like puns, and I like them in Power Rangers, there were just so many. And in this case, case, it's actually a bit more subtle, oddly enough. Now, the character designs are ones that you might not remember because they are going with more of a Boom-inspired character designs. But at the same time, though, that doesn't mean that they aren't, quote-unquote, the original Power Rangers that you remember. Because I can seriously just see every single one of them, and when every single one of them speaks, I literally hear the voices of the original actors in my head. It is that close to how they act and how they would act in a situation like this, and it was a lot of fun. And that's the thing about this. You know, if you want to have fun, then that's what this is. This is popcorn. This is candy. This is not part of a longer running arc, as I've been saying over and over. This is just meant for you to sit back and see what would have happened. And to be quite frank with you, you can see the how both characters mesh together and how both worlds mesh together. Technically not both worlds, I'll get to that in a sec. But when you see how they mesh together, it very much feels like writer Cullen Bunn actually knew, really had a great grasp of both universes, and I find that awesome. Now, when I say, both universes, but not exactly, so basically the plot, the general story is Rita finds something that I've never heard of in my life, but sounds like something that would totally exist in Power Rangers, which is like a multiversal item that could transport you to anywhere in the multiverse. She thinks, I'm going to go to a place without Power Rangers. That sounds pretty good, right? Like a pretty good gig for her. I mean, she wants to rule the world. These 5 teenagers continuously have to beat her up after algebra, and they're just like, and she's like, you know what? I don't want any of this. I literally do not want to be beaten by people with acne anymore. And so she then ends up using this multiversal device to go to a different universe, and oh my god, it's Angel Grove, and like it's completely destroyed. Something destroyed Angel Grove. Something must have done it before her. Yes, something did. A force that is to be reckoned with. A god, perhaps. Now, any normal person or witch would go, oh, I'm fucked, and then leave. Not Rita Repulsa. No, her hubris knows no bounds, and she actually goes, this is just a fixer-upper. I can do this. You know what? We're gonna be fine. I mean, I've summoned monsters. I mean, we've usually had them beaten, but still, I've summoned monsters. It's just a monster. And then she actually ends up meeting these aliens, which if you're not super familiar with Godzilla, and I totally understand because there's just so many different versions of Godzilla, this actually goes for the OG Godzilla, not the newer Godzilla that you may have seen through the most recent films, which I do enjoy, but no, not that Godzilla, not Shin Godzilla either. No, the OG, and actually brings back aliens that in the original movie that they were in, which has a bunch of different names, to be quite frank with you, Invasion of the Astro Monster, Monster Zero. The point is that they're actually the ones that initially summoned Ghidorah, which if you don't know what Ghidorah is about, I mentioned Godzilla, you just see it and you're like, oh, I'm fucked. That's Ghidorah times 3. This 3-headed monstrosity that was summoned to Earth, by these aliens being like, hey, guess what? We're going to actually take over the Earth. And Godzilla was like, that's really funny. You're a stand-up comedian. All of you are great. I actually run this place. And then they fought. And then they kissed. No, but they fought. And then they fought. And it was a really good movie. But, it's something that it's one of those things that you don't think they're going to reference because you think, they're probably going to go a bit too new school with this. And again, nothing wrong with it. You definitely know they're not going to mention the 1997 Godzilla. But still, you think, they're going to go for maybe some of the newer stuff. But actually going there was the perfect foil for Rita and for the entire gang. Well, I say the entire gang. Sadly, not the entire gang was there. Oh no, I'm forgetting their names. I'm remembering their Japanese names. Book back and top back. It's been that long, has it? The one that sounds like this, and the one that sounds like this too. They both were not there, and I fully understand why, because, they're comic relief in a way that they would have not added anything to the fight. They would have simply been a detriment and too many characters to write. So they were not present, but Scorpino was there, Goldar was there, of course Rita was there. No Zed, by the way, that would have been fucking terrifying. So either way, you did have a decent chunk of the cast that could fight, because as the story goes on, in classic standard crossover trope, Godzilla, oh no, he meets the Power Rangers, and they think, well, then that's a bad guy, and then they fight, and then they realize, wait, no, you're not a bad guy, and Godzilla's like, you think I give a shit, I'm going to kill you. They realize that they have to work together to fight, Rita, Goldar, these aliens whose names are escaping me. What are your names? So for some reason I can't find their name in this right quick, but they are from Planet X is the point. So they are, aliens that are there to strip the Earth of their natural resources, and Rita's like, I just don't give a shit. Can I just destroy the Earth after the fact? And so they form an alliance that, of course, is not going to be going on for a long time. But it is just, a brief alliance to try to destroy the Power Rangers because, Rita's been there, done that. She's like, yeah, sure. But the interesting thing, though, is, and I think this brings a new ripple into it, and is definitely the thing that on the playground you would have definitely brought up if Godzilla was brought into the equation. What about Godzilla versus the Dragon Zord? And what's beautiful is that's how we open up. Because initially Rita, does find this multiversal device, of course. And when Tommy is actually trailing her, he's a little bit too hot-headed in this, as this is still like young teenage Tommy. So he ends up jumping into the fight and then actually getting transported to the universe with them. Which is actually a great thing to set up because of the fact that you get this amazing fight out of the way. You show that Godzilla is a great threat that can stand up to the Dragon Zord. But also, Tommy then gets kidnapped by Rita. And it's a great way to take him out of the story for a long time, because if you just had him there from the get-go, I mean, the Power Rangers would have been able to have their, ultimate form combined with the Dragon Zord, and then you just would have had a very short comic book. And to be fair, this is a pretty quick read. I was able to finish it in about an hour or so. It's only 5 issues. But I do have to say, though, there is so much life breathed into this artwork. And I think what's even cooler is, just as someone who loves, and look, I love tokusatsu, I love Japanese superheroes, I love all of the stunt work and all of the gorgeous special effects, the model cities. It's brilliant and it's beautiful what can be done. But sadly, it is a medium that cannot do certain things. Is that a common rider outside? What the fuck? And certain things that can't be done are things that you would see in animation. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of seeing certain types of animated models in Toku, specifically with a TV budget, because they don't look that good. So in this case, actually being able to have them transform, the Power Rangers transform without posing, even though I do love the posing, but having them being able to do it while running and other cool stuff that, yes, I do enjoy how it's done in Toku, just kind of having one shot overlaid on another and kind of just flashing as they're running or something like that. Really awesome stuff. I really do enjoy it, but having it look kind of cybernetic in a way is beautiful. And also just seeing a bunch of other things as well that can't be done, just how fast the Megazord moved around, just a bunch of other things, and I'll be showing you some footage of it just out of context, that really just is just something that only comic books or animation could do. And I think it's done in such a beautiful way. It really feels like they were taking full advantage of the medium when writing and when drawing this. And I just think it was beautiful. One thing, though, before I get into some more credits of some of the artists and people who worked on this, one thing that I felt a little odd about, though, is why, and maybe this is just my own color blindness that I didn't think I have, but I might actually have. When trying to see the difference between between Jason and Kimberly talking, what they do when they're transformed and you can't see them is they actually have the bubbles be the colors of the Rangers, which is really cool. So, you end up having Billy being blue and Tommy being green. So that's really cool. But here's the thing, though. With Jason and with Kimberly, the red and pink that they used were so close to each other, it was a bit hard to notice at times, which might just be me, but it was a little bit hard to notice who was who at certain points. But I do want to give credit where credit is due, though, and how fantastic this was just overall by talking about some of the other people who worked on this. So the art was done by Freddie E. Williams II, colors by Andrew Dalhouse, and letters by Joanna Natalie. And while I'm saying their names, I'll actually have some of the stuff that they've done on the screen right now, because I just think that, there has to be credit where credit is due. This isn't, even though, yes, you see IDW and you see Boom on the back and you see Godzilla and Power Rangers on the front, it wasn't created by them necessarily. It's just the IPs. These are the people behind the IPs that make great things and things like this possible. So I really love this so much. I love the actual comic book covers that were used, because if you're a bit new to comics just in general, even though this is a trade paperback where you're not going to see the original issues, the actual artwork that's on the issues, they do have them separating each chapter, and it's really cool to see. Also in the back of the book as well, and you can see this right now as I'm talking about it, they actually have alternate covers that they used, and Jesus Christ, is that a Kamen Rider? A car alarm just went off. Anyway, I really enjoy this artwork so much, and I would buy so many prints. I would literally end up going into debt over getting frames and whatnot just to put, blown up versions of these pieces of art. I mean, they are fantastic. And something I want to note as well before we wrap this thing up is they did one of my favorite shots in Toku, in specifically Japanese superhero stuff, where, and it was done a bit differently than usual, but still in a way that I really enjoyed. So normally I'm a huge fan of the broken mask shot, where a mask is kind of broken and cracked and you can see someone's eye just peering through. It's one of those things where it's like, the eyes are the window to the soul, and you can see exactly what an actor is feeling in that moment, and it always takes my breath away. In this case, they didn't do that at all. What they did was they actually had the masks, they were just fine, not broken whatsoever, but you could still see through the visor and see some of the characters' eyes especially during some more tense moments, and it was brilliant. So it's one of those things where, again, taking full advantage of the fact that you don't have to deal with visors and with, the way, a camera works when it's filming, actually, filming a helmet. So if you're trying to do something like that, you actually have to show like the inside of the helmet or something of the actor, or they have to obviously take it off. No, you can actually just play with that stuff with a comic. So again, as I've said over and over, and as you can clearly probably tell, I really did enjoy this. So what didn't I like? Well, it's just a thing where if I'm really putting my thinking cap on, it didn't really tell any new story. It wasn't here to tell anything new. Everything returns to the status quo at the end. Not going to say what and why, but I mean, I think, I'm telling you it's not a continuous series. I think you can kind of guess where it's going. And you can really, once you see what they've laid out, it's one of those things where you feel like, well, I mean, could I have thought of that? But it's not just about something being told. It's about how it's being told. And I think that's what's very important and something we need to remember, especially while reading this. I feel like the basic premise is something that you could have thought of on, a playground, right? But is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that I got exactly what I could have guessed I was going to get and done very, very well? Have we gotten to the point where it's a guessing game, and if I guessed right, then you're wrong, and they're wrong? Is that really what we've come to, So I feel like it's one of those things where part of me goes, I could have seen many a beat coming. But another part of me thinks, how fucking great was it that we even got this in the first place, and the story that was told so well. So in my opinion, I definitely suggest picking this up. If you're into Godzilla, if you're into Power Rangers, even if you're into one over the other, it definitely is one of those clashes that people have been talking about for ages. And I definitely think this is a comic that people will be talking about as well. This comic is definitely worth the price, and I think it's good for new and old fans alike. So definitely check it out if you have the chance. Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So if you have read this, tell me what you think down below. If you haven't read this, tell me what you think down below. I would love to hear what you have to say about this, and I would love to hear if you want to check it out as well. So thank you all so much for watching. If you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you don't like the video, you can still like and subscribe either way. I won't judge you for it. So either way though, love you all, take care, and tune in next time. So, see ya.